I can be mad at the Dodgers, but I'm really not mad at the Dodgers. I'm mad at other teams for not spending money, allowing the Dodgers to gather up all of these assets, all of these players, and just hoard them. But it's the other team's fault because they're not spending the money.
Drive into left. At the wall. It's gone. Tie game.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Throwing Partners podcast. It's Kirby, Joe, and Nate here, coming to you on a Sunday night. Tonight, we are going to discuss our winners and losers of the offseason. We are going to start tonight by talking about our losers of the offseason. So buckle in, everyone. Here we go. Losers for the offseason. Before we got on the air tonight, Joe, we discussed one team that we both agreed were absolute losers because of the window that they're in right now, and that is the Baltimore Orioles. They have been in a winning window for the last two seasons. They did not replace Corbin Burns. They managed to get Tyler O'Neill and Charlie Morton as their big offseason acquisitions. They lost Corbin Burns and Anthony Santander. Obviously, Charlie Morton and Tyler O'Neill are not Santander or Burns. They don't have really right now a bona fide ace. They've got a lot of guys that can give you some decent innings. But overall, the Orioles have had a terrible offseason, not to mention after a terrible trade deadline last year. I personally think that they are the biggest loser of the offseason right now. I don't know about you guys. What do you think?
I mean, I also agree, and I agree because, as you mentioned, the window that they have right now, they're in a window of opportunity, and their ownership just refused to spend money on a guy like Anthony Santander, which could put up 40-plus home runs a year, and he's versatile because he's a switch hitter. You're never going to miss a matchup with him. So I think that they really missed out on being able to re-sign him. And I also think that, we're going to talk about a team in a little bit in the Red Sox. I think that they've broken the division wide open. I think that they're going to be very competitive, and I think that they're actually going to leap both the Yankees and the Orioles with the moves they made over the offseason. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But that's also part of the reason why I think the Orioles are the biggest losers of the offseason, because they have such a young, talented position player core, but they have not been able to develop quality pitching yet. And that is their biggest weakness, and they did not address that by getting a starter. Charlie Morton is a great guy. As an Astros fan, I appreciated his service in 2017. I really wish that he would have pitched for us a little bit longer. Obviously going to the Rays and then the Braves, and now he's making another stop in Baltimore, but he is not a bona fide ace. He is not the starter that he was in 2020, 2021. He's had a lot of regression from year over year in the last 3 years. So I was really disappointed with the moves that they made, or lack thereof, this offseason. So it'll be interesting to see how the season plays out, because, as I said, I think the Red Sox are going to bust that division wide open and potentially compete for a World Series title with the additions they made.
I agree. Nathan, what do you think about biggest losers? Who do you have as a big loser for the offseason?
I think most of the ones we talked about in the pre-show are definitely on the list. San Diego, yeah, they lost a good of pieces around. Losing Kim to the Rays, it's a little unheard of. I mean, the Rays kind of came out of nowhere to swipe them up for that. I might have a controversial one here. The Yankees. I mean, how do you lose out on Juan Soto? I mean, if you take all the other moves they made into account, it's an okay offseason. But if you just purely look at that, I mean, you lose out on Juan Soto, like once in a generation type of guy. I mean, a step down from Ohtani, but he's still up there. He's still a pretty good dude. I also want to build a little bit off of Joe's point. I think the O's, they really did drop the ball. I mean, it seems like everybody else in the division made significant moves. Toronto snatching Santander away from them. The Yankees, they lost Soto, but they still made it up by getting Bellinger. The Red Sox, obviously, they went stupid. Those guys just stake it up.
I mean,
Really?
can we have an honest moment? There is a world where everything goes right for, let's say, Toronto. Obviously, the Yankees have a ton of depth. The Red Sox made moves. And then the Rays always seem to win at least 85 games a year. There's a world where the Orioles get last in this division. It may sound unrealistic, but their pitching staff sucks. I mean, Charlie Morton is not going to be able to pitch at a high level forever. It's just not going to happen.
Just old.
He is. He's 41 years old. Grayson Rodriguez, we haven't seen enough of him to know if he's going to be an ace type guy or not. As much as I would like to see that, being an East Texas guy myself. They lost Burns, obviously. I mean, who even starts on opening day right now for the Orioles? I don't have a clue.
Gotta be Rodriguez. It's gotta be.
It has to be, right?
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things. I mean, there's a world where the Orioles are maybe like an 85-win team and squeaking in to the postseason, or worse. And also too, I don't know how much you guys have looked into this. Did you see how bad Adley Rutschman's season was last year? This dude had an OPS of 706. That's horrible. Everybody thought this guy was going to be the next great catcher in the league. He's gotten progressively worse every season. So I'm just not really a believer in the Orioles right now. And if that's going to be the case, go ahead and start the rebuild process all over again and give me Gunnar Henderson. Because the Braves would happily lock that dude down for about 8 years at $170 million. I mean, let's go ahead and get that done right now. So it's really annoying because, they have a good fan base. They have a good ballpark. And their ownership
This ballpark is gorgeous,
hasn't done anything. So I feel bad for them. But guys, also speaking of the fan base, because I actually took this into effect as well when it came to losers, the Cardinals. The Cardinals have not made one single notable acquisition this offseason. The Cardinals fan base is fantastic. They constantly have that place at full capacity or pretty close to it. They've got some of the best, most knowledgeable fans in the entire world. And they've always seemed to have pretty good player development. I don't really know what's going on with the Cardinals. I'm not in Cardinals world every day or Cardinals Twitter for that matter. But for them to not have any notable acquisitions is just mind-boggling. That's horrible for the fan base. If they were to come out and say, we're going to go through a short rebuild, we're going to go ahead and trade Arenado and try to get some pieces back. We're going to try to trade, maybe Sonny Gray and get some pieces back. Okay, I think the fans would understand that. But right now, there's no real direction as to where they're going. So I just don't really know what their game plan is or what it looks like. But they've got one of the best fan bases in the world with nothing to show for it. But I just can't imagine being a Cardinals fan right now just sitting in limbo. I mean, this is a situation the Cardinals could be, 10 games under 500 at the All-Star break, and then maybe they sell off pieces. I can see a world where that happens because we have seen teams like the Cubs get a lot better this offseason. The Pirates have done absolutely nothing. I would almost consider them a loser as well, especially when you've got one of the faces of baseball in your rotation.
Yeah.
But the Cardinals have no reason to not do anything because their division, once again, isn't that great. Milwaukee lost quite a few pieces too. They're not that great. So they just have no reason to not do anything. I mean, at least stay somewhat competitive. So I have the Cardinals as a loser as well. What about you, Joe? Do you have any more losers?
I do, and it's within the AL West. It is the Seattle Mariners. They had high hopes over the offseason. They thought that they were going to be in contention to sign guys like Santander and Bregman, and then they were also rumored to potentially try to trade for Luis Robert Jr. And they missed out on all of those players, only adding Donovan Solano, Miles Matstromboni, and Jorge Polanco, all both uh, Donovan Solano and then Jorge Polanco were signed to 1-year deals, and then Miles Mastrombino was traded with the Cubs. I butchered his name. I got it right the first time, butchered his name the second time. Um, but yeah, they did absolutely nothing. They're kind of the antithesis of the Orioles. I mean, they have built a strong pitching core, and they know how to develop, their pitching prospects, but they do not know how to develop position players outside of Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez. I mean, they made a great trade last year for Randy Rosarena, so their outfield isn't going to be absolutely horrible. But as I mentioned, they were in contention for some big names, and just they absolutely swung and missed this offseason.
Mm.
Right now, especially since they have uh, a lot of their young starters who are some of the best in the game. You could say that's probably the best rotation in baseball right now. Under league average salaries, they're not taking advantage and spending the money that they need to on hitters that can mash. Because I understand that I almost said Safeco, but it's T-Mobile Park now. It'll always be Safeco, just like it'll always be Minute Maid.
Same.
But Safeco / T-Mobile is not a very hitter friendly park. So I mean, their scouts need to do some analysis on hitters that are that hit well in that park. They don't do it, they get mediocrity. I mean, they made the playoffs in 2022. They had really high hopes the last 2 years and just could not get the job done. So I think that they are another loser, especially, like I said, with this window of opportunity that they have with the pitching core that they have been able to develop.
I don't disagree with that at all. It's so interesting to me because some teams do things so well, like the Orioles developing position players. Obviously, the Mariners developing pitching. The Brewers being able to develop catching. But it's like
Catchers,
it's
yeah.
almost like no team can really do all three well. And also too drafting well. Because it to me it always seems like everybody always talks about how the Dodgers have like this great, farm system. But right now they have not one single guy but Will Smith on their roster that they drafted and developed. So to me it's like, how good really is their farm system or how good is their player development? Because right now we ain't seeing none of it. They had Cody Bellinger for a while, that was one. Obviously Will Smith. But besides that, it's like who has come up through their system that's been an all-star, been a superstar, or a legacy type player? It hasn't happened. So I've never that's a whole nother topic, but it's just mind-boggling to me how good the Mariners are at developing pitching, but nothing else. I mean, I don't know if their ballpark needs some kind of revamp or bring the fences in, but my God. Also, as a hitter, I would never want to go there. I would never want to go there. If I knew that my numbers were going to be dumbed down so much, I mean, I don't know how they. It's like the Toronto thing, who wants to go there? Just kind of my thoughts on it.
No, I mean, I completely agree. Yeah. Another one of my losers over the offseason was an NL East team, the Marlins. They made very little acquisitions. And they're kind of just in limbo, like they always are. It is so interesting to me how this organization is run. I don't get it. I mean, what are they doing? Why are they a team in Major League Baseball right now? What purpose do they serve?
That's a
I just don't get them. So they're my losers. I'm sorry, but they're one of my losers. Marlins, just Marlins.
It's. I know that Major League Baseball eventually wants to expand and have 32 teams, but right now, my God, there are 3 teams that should not, that really have guys on their roster that are not Major League talent. The Marlins, the Rockies, and then I lost my train. Oh, the White Sox, duh. Yeah, historically horrible White Sox. So it's like those three teams right now. It's like what are you offering the rest of the league besides free wins almost? I mean, it's just. I know one year. This was probably like 2 to 3 years ago. The Braves went like 18-1 or like 13-1 against the Marlins. They had one loss against them all year. It's like you're not offering the league anything but free wins. I mean, and the talent that you have on your roster, if the people aren't picking up the phone and calling you at the trade deadline, you really have nothing of value, you know?
Yeah.
And then not to add injury to insult, but like the one guy that was on their team, Jake Berger, that was good, like he's gone now. I mean, he's with the Rangers, you know? So it's one of those things. Like I agree, Joe. What is the Marlins' purpose? What are they doing? Because to me it looks like they're just filling a spot to fill a ballpark, and they're not even filling a ballpark with fans. They've
I
got
was just about to say
they,
they're not even doing that.
no. It just seems pointless to me. I would rather us have.
And
Go ahead.
I don't even blame the people of Miami
No.
for not showing up for their team. They have won 2 World Series in their franchise's history. And after both World Series, their franchise has completely sold all of the assets
Yep.
that were a part of winning those championships. Both times, ownership did that. So
Yeah.
I don't even blame Marlins fans for not supporting a team that's located in Miami. I don't blame them. I mean, we have seen that stadium get absolutely bonkers during the World Baseball Classic. It is a shame that there is not a competent MLB team in that locality, because we know that the fans are there and they're passionate, but they just don't have a team to root for because the ownership sells anything that's good. It frustrates me. That's one of the other things. I get very frustrated on this podcast a lot. The Marlins absolutely frustrate me because of the World Baseball Classic, because we've seen that stadium get absolutely nuts when there's actual good baseball being played there. And there just hasn't been. There hasn't been for the longest time outside of these tournaments.
Yeah, it kind of seems like they've been scarred as a organization since the whole Jose Fernandez thing.
Ouch.
I mean, since that kicked off, yeah. I mean, they give away Stanton, they give away Jazz,
Yelich,
Yelich
Muto.
leaves,
Yeah.
Real Muto.
Yeah.
It's like a big scar on the franchise, and they're so young. They haven't been around forever. They're young. It's a huge scar to have on the franchise.
I mean, have
So
you
I
ever?
wonder if that's played a part in it.
It's interesting too. You were talking about their 2 World Series teams. If you go back and look at their '97 roster, their '97 roster was full of all-stars, and guys that would end up having great careers. If the '97 Marlins would have had the front office that the Atlanta Braves had in 2019, when they locked up every freaking guy, the Braves would not have won 14 straight division titles. Some of those would have gone to the Marlins because they had some real talent on that team. It's wild looking at how good some of those guys were, and then the next year in April, they don't even have a competent starter because the whole team was gone. So it's. I mean, also okay. So let's say that when the Marlins were brought into the league in the early '90s, they win the World Series in '97. You're on this big high. Well, then they get rid of everybody. Why would you ever go back to rooting for that team? You know what I mean? Like, how would you ever do that? How would you root for that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That like I said, that's why I don't blame the fans, because they did it again. They just pulled the rug out of their fans again. They won the World Series not long after that, and they sold off the team completely again. But anyways, I think that we should move on. I think that we're all in consensus with the winners of the offseason.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and list them right now, and then we can talk about the moves that they made. The winners are the Dodgers, obviously, the Mets for signing Juan Soto, and then the Red Sox, because the Red Sox, and I've already mentioned this, have had a tremendous offseason. But I want to start off with the Dodgers. and the Mets before we get into the Red Sox. So if y'all would like to dive into some of the moves that the Dodgers made over the offseason, we can go into that.
Well, the Dodgers, obviously, I was just writing. These are the ones I just named off the top of my head. So they gained, not meaning retained, but gained Snell, Sasaki, Tanner Scott, Conforto, and Song Kim. Yeah, that's like potentially 5 freaking all-stars right there. Then they retained or brought back Kike Hernandez and Kershaw and Teoscar Hernandez. And here's the crazy thing: it's like they lost Walker Buehler, Jack Flaherty, and Gavin Lux, but it doesn't really even sting that much because Buehler wasn't great until the postseason, and Flaherty wasn't really that great with them anyway. So to me, what 100% consensus, yes, they won the offseason. Now, granted, games have to be played, and I still don't know who on that squad is going to give them 150 innings. But we're going to find out in about 6 months how many guys actually threw 150 innings on that squad. I would say that the only maybe lock for it would be Snell. And then I would maybe go with Yamamoto. But besides that, I don't know a single guy on that roster right now that's going to give you that kind of innings. Which is why, obviously, they went out and got a lot of starting pitching. Nathan, what do you think? Dodgers 100% consensus for you?
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue that the Dodgers had anything but a great offseason. I mean, you bring up a good point about their starters throwing that many innings. Let's be honest right now. They don't freaking have to. They brought in Tanner Scott. They brought in Kirby Yates. They kept trying in. They brought in Giovanni Gallegos on a minor league deal. Let's be honest. The dude was great in St. Louis. He just needs a little bit of time to get back. They don't need a ton of outs from their starters. They have
they need 15
a great
outs.
bullpen.
Oh. Yep.
They have a great bullpen. They might get away with a lot of stuff this year because they don't need to rely on starters.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if they want to keep all those arms healthy, they need to do that. But they've added depth from the field to the bullpen to the starting rotation. It's been an incredible effort all throughout, and I hate it as a fan. But
I hate it too. But at the same time, it's like they have an ownership that's willing to do that. What fan doesn't want an ownership that wants to spend money and to be successful? Obviously, I'm a Braves fan in the National League, so I hate it. Okay, because I would have loved for the Braves to have gotten Snell or Sasaki or Teoscar Hernandez or Michael Conforto or, by God, maybe even
literally anyone. Yeah.
Did I mention we got outbid for Tanner Scott? Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's like I don't want to say be happy for Dodgers fans, but it's like I would be happy as a Dodgers fan because their ownership group cares. Now granted their payroll is pushing $400 million, but I mean, we just saw they had a top 5 payroll last year, and guess what? They won the World Series. Spending money does help win games. We've already proven that, just looking at data a couple podcasts ago. So, Joe, I know you got some thoughts on this because you hate the Dodgers, so let's hear it.
I mean, okay, so listen, I hate the Dodgers mainly because their fans are so smug. But they spend money on the team, and then they go throw out a quality product. I mean, I would be smug about that too. It's just they're doing the right thing. They found a manipulation that allows them to pay players while not paying players.
Yep.
And no other team really has taken full advantage of that. And you're not going to see a lot of other teams take advantage of that because I keep saying it. It brings down the value of the organization if you defer contracts past a certain date, because it just brings down the value. And sports teams are some of the highest valued assets you can own as a billionaire.
Yep.
And you don't want to bring that down if you're an owner. So you're not going to. Dodgers ownership group knows that they're not going to sell the Dodgers, so they're throwing around FU money like crazy. They're literally telling the rest of the league, go F yourself. I mean, it's just that simple. I don't understand why Steinbrenner isn't doing that. I don't understand why he didn't do that for someone like Juan Soto. Maybe he has thoughts about selling it. And again, I get the Dodgers have a very lucrative deal with their, TV broadcasting that not a lot of other teams get. But it's billionaires running like hundreds of $1 million franchises.
Mm-hmm.
Spend the money on it and you'll get return on that investment. I mean, that's the whole point of a business, right? You get ROI, you put money in, you make more.
Well, I mean,
I don't understand. I mean, it frustrates me because it hits me to my core. Speaking of core, the Astros core is no longer there. I mean,
here we go.
I'm gonna bring it around to that. This is part of the reason why it frustrates me. No, because the Dodgers, you know what? They've bought their core, but at least it's a core. I don't even know the starting outfield for the Astros is going to be this year. I mean, what are we doing? But like I said, I cannot be mad at I can be mad at the Dodgers, but I'm really not mad at the Dodgers. I'm mad at other teams for not spending money, allowing the Dodgers to gather up all of these assets, all of these players, and just hoard them. But it's the other team's fault because they're not spending the money. That's my rant. That's my Dodgers rant.
Well,
It's absurd that they're allowed to spend this much money, but if no other team is going to, then it doesn't really matter because, like I said, FU money. They're just gonna go tell you to F themselves. It's frustrating.
well,
It's cheating without actually cheating.
well, I mean, speaking of billionaires, Joe, the team that I have second on my list is the Mets. Mets had a great offseason. Obviously, they got Juan Soto.
Yep.
We've
I
already
agree.
talked about that. But it's the depth that they added along with Soto that I think actually pole vaults them into the number 2 spot. Because yes, every team in the league would have loved to have had Soto sign with them. However, they also went and got Clay Holmes, who they want to try as a starter. If it doesn't work out as a starter, Clay Holmes is a great reliever. They retained Sean Manaea, they signed Frankie Montas, and they went and got AJ Minter. AJ Minter, if he is healthy after hip surgery, he is a lights out lefty. He is great. He is going to be a great setup guy, either probably in the 7th or 8th inning for them if he's healthy. If Clay Holmes doesn't work out as a starter and he ends up back in the bullpen, their bullpen is a top 5 bullpen easily with Minter, Holmes, Edwin Diaz, Ryan Stanek. Their bullpen is solid. And I also considered them the number 2 on the list because they only lost Luis Severino. That's it. Now, granted, Sevy had a great season last year, but he also didn't go to a National League team. He ended up going to the Athletics. So that doesn't hurt them. So I think that the Mets are, in my opinion, probably right at the number 2 spot. Not to mention, Lindor and Soto, that combo at the top is going to be great. They also retained Pete Alonso. They managed to bring him back.
Alonso, yep.
So you look at the top 4 between Lindor and Soto and Alonso and Mark Vientos, and suddenly that's a very, very good top 4. I would say that is a top 3 to top 5, top 4 in all of Major League Baseball easily. You know, you have the Dodgers in that. You're going to have the Braves in that. You're going to have the Mets in that. You're going to have the Astros in that. You know, there's just not a lot of teams that have a better top 4, than the Mets. Now, granted, the rest of their lineup is a little shaky. It's like that one drawing that has the horse, and then it looks like crap at the end on the body. Like the horse head looks great, and then the body looks terrible. That's exactly kind of what their lineup could look like. But that's a scary top 4 to navigate if you're an opposing pitcher. So I don't know how y'all feel about the Mets being the number 2 winner, but that's kind of how I see it.
I mean, I can't disagree with you. I mean, signing Juan Soto automatically made them a winner, in my opinion, because of the team that they had already established. But then, adding or retaining Pete Alonso was kind of the icing on the cake. And then, as you said, they made a lot of depth moves. Um, so I think the Mets are set up in a great position to be real contenders over over the regular season. And I'm sure that they're only going to get better at the trade deadline because you know that Steve Cohen, an actual fan of baseball, is not going to put up with mediocrity at the deadline. I mean, he's already proven he's willing to do what it takes. When they weren't performing in 2022, no, 2023, um, and sell at the deadline when he thought necessary. He wasn't afraid to admit his mistakes over the offseason, getting rid of Scherzer and Verlander. Um, but I mean, I don't put it past him that he's willing to do what it takes. Uh, improve the team at the deadline either. Um, yeah, Nathan, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, signing Soto, just in itself, I agree. I mean, that move in itself, you could almost look at him as number one. But I mean, the way the Dodgers did it, yeah, kind of hard to get past that. I mean, they're another team that just had a ridiculously incredible offseason. Like I think these moves are a lot lower profile, but they're not bad. I think everyone is a little distracted by the glamour that the Dodgers just released in this offseason. None of these moves are bad. Manaea was great for them. Montas is a solid dude. Minter obviously is good. They re-signed Winker,
Mhm.
who in the offseason or in the postseason was
He's the ultimate
huge
vibes
for
guy
them.
for them.
Yeah, I hate the guy, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's the absolute vibes guy. And they really didn't give anything up. They lost Severino and Bader, which I mean, is Bader really that notable? Maybe in the field, but not up to bat. Um, these guys are easy number two. Easy number two.
Definitely. Well, and that kind of takes me to my number 3 because I believe it's the Boston Red Sox who I'm going to pick to win the division this year. Um, just looking at the guys that they gained this year, okay, or this offseason. Okay, they gained an ace in Garrett Crochet, which is something they desperately needed. They gained a resurgent Walker Bueller, who looked like himself in the postseason. They gained a Aroldis Chapman. And then just as of a couple days ago, they gained Alex Bregman, who I don't know if you guys have seen some clips from that. Bregman looks like he got his swagger back as soon as he put that Red Sox uniform on. That dude actually looked happy. I was very intrigued by seeing the way he looked when he put on that Red Sox uniform. And I'm thinking to myself, we ain't seen that since like 2019. So I don't know what the season looks like for him. But obviously they now have veteran leadership with Bregman there. Now, granted, they did lose like Nick Pivetta, they lost Tyler O'Neill, they lost Kenley Jansen, but none of those names right there are names that they didn't go and replace or make better. Not to mention their farm system is extremely good with Marcelo Mayer, Christian Campbell. Their farm system is good, and they've got guys just waiting in the wings in case somebody gets hurt. So I think that they have enough young depth as well to keep them in the race for that AL East title. Joe, I gotta know. We're 33 minutes in now. Tell me your thoughts about Bregman. Just lay it all out there.
Well, I kind of already let it go in the Dodgers segment, so might as well pile on here. I already said that if the Astros traded away Tucker and they didn't re-sign Bregman, I was not going to support the team this year financially. I'm not. I do not have any intentions on planning on going to a single game this year. I'm going to continue to watch. I'm still going to be a fan, but I'm going to be a fan from afar. I'm not going to Minute Maid Park. There, I said it. I'm not going to Minute Maid Park, and you're not going to catch me calling it that other horrific name. You're not going to catch me. They have the ability to take away a name of a stadium that is so sacred to my heart, getting a much more lucrative naming rights deal, and they're not going to spend that money on the naming rights deal to go re-sign Alex Bregman. They're not going to freaking budge from 6 years, 156 to defer any money to him to make him a $40 million a year AAV guy. No, they're not. So yes, I do think the Red Sox are winners. I think they're winners just because of the leadership quality that Alex Bregman brings to such a young team that's poised to break out this year.
Mhm.
I mean, they have got a very good hitting core. And I think that they made enough additions to their pitching staff to be very good contenders this year. So yeah, I mean, Alex Bregman is going to help that pitching staff tremendously because he is just a freaking baseball rat. And you saw it. It is so frustrating because Alex Bregman's intangibles were everything that Martin Maldonado was supposed to be.
Mm.
I mean, Chandler Rome was reporting this in like May that Alex Bregman was going in and sitting down with all of these pitchers after games and telling them what, as a hitter, you would see. Now, Alex Bregman could do that because he's a good hitter. Martin Maldonado couldn't do that because he's not a good hitter.
Never was.
That's the kind of veteran leadership you actually needed. Someone who, A, actually understood the game of hitting, and B, was just a rat like that. I mean, he is just nonstop at the field or in the cage. And he's not a very soft-spoken guy. I mean, he is a vocal leader in the clubhouse. I will say that this did not hurt as much as Carlos Correa leaving. But basically all of the Astros core from 2017, except Lance McCullers, which he's basically gone, and Jose Altuve are gone. I mean, that's my childhood right there. It started off basically in 2014 with Springer and Altuve. It went to Correa in 2015, Alex Bregman in 2016, and now they're all gone. I mean, it's frustrating. We developed these superstars, and we paid none of them. Now, granted, Springer didn't want to be here, and the Blue Jays haven't exactly gotten the money or the value from him that they would have liked. Correa has a chronic foot problem, but he is still produced for the Twins at a reasonable level. And it's better than anything we're getting out of Jeremy Pena at the moment with the player that he has been. I'm thankful for what he did in 2022, but brother, lift the ball off the ground. For Pete's sake, your sprint speed is not going to be a top 5 in the league for forever. You got to learn how to lift the ball. And I saw a video of him taking BP off of freaking just someone throwing not live, but just throwing BP. And it was ground ball after ground ball. So, yeah, Correa hurt. This one hurt mainly because, I mean, it was him and Altuve made such an effort to try to keep him here, and it just, nothing happened. I mean, you let the franchise legend, the best player in your franchise's history, come out and be that vocal about keeping a guy, and you let him walk away. That is a massive failure on everybody's end. So with that being said, yes, Red Sox winners for Alex Bregman. The Garrett Crochet trade, great trade. Signing Walker Buehler, I think could, it's not a risky deal at all. It's a 1-year deal. It's a prove it deal. I was actually surprised the Dodgers didn't retain his services with the contract that they offered him. I think that they have only gains to reap from that signing. And then I think that the Patrick Sandoval signing, I think that could turn out to be, kind of big too, another low risk 2-year deal. So yeah, I think, the Red Sox are winners. I'll get into the Astros a little bit more when we move on, because I do want to talk about teams that had interesting off seasons, can't really define where they're at. And I have 3 in mind. I didn't go through this with y'all, but I have three in mind. Mine are the Yankees, the Astros, and the Cubs. I think that all three of them had very interesting off seasons. Have no idea how it's going to pay off. So I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts on those three teams, and then I'll kind of get into my thoughts on them after y'all discuss.
So when it comes to the Yankees, obviously they had to make a quick pivot off Soto. I'm interested to see how Cody Bellinger plays at Yankee Stadium this year. Obviously he's probably going to play like either center or left, depending on what Jason Dominguez plays, where he plays. And they'll move Judge back to right field, I'm sure. Obviously, Max Fried was a huge signing for them. Does Max Fried stay healthy? Devin Williams is he's a great closer, great reliever in general. So overall, that offseason feels good. However, they lost Soto, so that still stings. They signed Paul Goldschmidt to a 1-year deal. How does he look this year? Their lineup, if this lineup was the lineup of these guys from like 4 to 5 years ago, this lineup is really freaking good. Right now, it looks like
Yeah.
it's Aaron Judge and a bunch of misfit toys.
Retirement home.
It looks like a retirement home. That's a great way to put it. Now, when it comes to the Cubs, I would have actually considered the Cubs a winner of the offseason if they would have extended Kyle Tucker. If they would have been able to extend Kyle Tucker before the season, I would have considered them winners. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way they're bringing that guy back. For one, Wrigley Field, not hitter friendly. Two, that dude wants to test free agency. He's looking for 400 plus. I can guarantee that. Not to mention, he had up until this season, he had a track record of being very healthy. If he is a 5 to 6 win player at Wrigley this year, that is a 6 to 8 win player potential somewhere else in a better ballpark for him. So those are my thoughts on the Cubs and the Yankees. What was the other team, Joe? The Astros?
The Astros. Yeah.
Joe, I know that you were upset about Bregman leaving. However, dude, I'm more excited for the fact that they got Cam Smith from that Kyle Tucker trade. Because if you've seen video and pictures of this dude, he is a freaking animal. He is a big dude.
He's a unit.
Yes, he's going to play right field more than likely. And I'm calling it right now. Cam Smith owns that right field position by the All-Star break. I think they bring him up June 1st, and I think by the All-Star break, that is his spot, and nobody else takes it from him. I think he is that talented. I also found it very interesting that Joe Espada said that Bryce Matthews looks exceptionally comfortable at second base when he saw him play in Puerto Rico. So I think that is more or less why they're giving Altuve looks in left to see if he can actually handle it. Is there a chance that Bryce Matthews actually makes the team out of camp? Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. I'm sure that they probably ride with Chaz and Jake and left and center to start the year. But I mean, I don't know, Joe. I actually think that between Matthews and Cam Smith, and then obviously they still have guys like Whitcomb and DeCenzo and guys like that too. I'm not saying the future looks like as bright as it did 5 or 6 years ago when all of the stars were coming in, but guys like Cam Smith and Bryce Matthews are very talented, and I think that they are very much excited to be excited about. So that's kind of my thoughts on those three teams.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think we mentioned the Yankees lineup. Yeah, the Yankees lineup is a retirement home. I mean, like, good Lord. Cody Bellinger, Giancarlo Stanton, Paul Goldschmidt, DJ LeMahieu. I mean, he's just not the same player anymore. Paul Goldschmidt, I don't even think he really cares about baseball anymore. I kind of view him the same way I view Anthony Rondon. I don't know. They give me the same vibes. I don't know, but their rotation could be nasty, and that's why I think that they could have an interesting offseason with that Max Fried signing. Their rotation is Garrett Cole, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Luis Guile, Clark Schmidt, and Marcus Stroman. I mean, that's a really good rotation right there. Having Marcus Stroman as your sixth starter, and obviously this is barring health, but that's a good starting rotation right there. And their lineup could be good. I mean, these guys have a track record. Now, they're a little past their prime, but they could have their moments. And I think, with the right push or, the ball just rolling their way once or twice, they could be in contention. I'm not saying that they're going to go back to the World Series, but they could be very good. And the Cubs, I think that the Cubs had an interesting offseason because they traded for Kyle Tucker and then didn't really do much after that. I mean, I don't understand what the Cubs' move was there. And then trading for Ryan Presley as well, but then trading Cody Bellinger, who could have paired very well with Kyle Tucker. I mean, maybe they didn't want two left-handed outfield bats, but I don't get it. I don't really understand what they were doing. And like you said, they didn't sign Tucker to an extension, so it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't add up. So that's why I think they had an interesting offseason. And then the Astros, they brought in Isak Paredes and Cam Smith, and then Hayden Wisnowski from that Kyle Tucker trade. They lose Alex Bregman. I don't even know what their outfield is going to be. I mean, that was one of the failures of the offseason, was not re-signing or not re-signing, but not extending Kyle Tucker, not even attempting to, not signing Anthony Santander or Teoscar Hernandez, or Jerickson Profar. Big failures on that end. I mean, you're going to really run out Chas McCormick. Yeah, or you're at least saying, as of right now, you're going to run out a group of Chas McCormick, freaking Jake Myers, and Mauricio Dubon, potentially. I mean,
Horrible.
Like right now, I have the Astros projected lineup on my screen, and it says Jose Altuve in left field, Isak Paredes at third base, Yordan Alvarez at DH, Christian Walker at first base, Yainer Diaz at catcher, Jeremy Pena at shortstop, Chas McCormick at right field, Mauricio Dubon at second, and Jake Myers in center field. And okay, first of all, I don't know who wrote this, but they're kind of a dumbass because I would prefer Mauricio Dubon in left field over Jose Altuve.
Absolutely.
Because Altuve has a noodle arm, and he has a noodle arm at second base. He's going to have a noodle arm from left field. So that's besides the point. But
Altuve,
I mean, that like
0 runners in left.
yeah. So I don't understand. They made the Christian Walker move, I feel like, 3 years too late. Christian Walker's a great player, but this is like, you should have made this move 3 years ago. And I know that he wasn't a free agent 3 years ago, but there was always rumors that you were going to trade for him. You never did. I think, I'm not saying that he's going to be bad this year. I'm really excited to see how him and Isak both play at Minute Maid Park. But the outfield, man. The outfield is killing me just thinking about that. And then with Jeremy Pena in there, again, I have nothing against him. I am so, I want him to be good. I want him to lift the ball. He's got muscles on his arms the size of my head, but he cannot lift the ball off the ground. I just want him to learn how to lift the ball off the ground. That's all I want. If he does that, it's all right. We're all good. So yeah, I think they had an interesting offseason. I really do think that Bryce Matthews could be a contender for a shortstop position. Screw right field. I think that if Jeremy Pena doesn't learn how to lift the ball off the ground, Bryce Matthews could be playing shortstop for the Astros sometime soon. I mean, and then you put Cam Smith in the outfield. I don't know, one or the other. You put Cam Smith somewhere. I mean, I'm excited about both Cam Smith and Bryce Matthews. Now, Whitcomb and Zenzo, I am not high on. I'm not high on Melton anymore. I was high on him for a while, but I'm not high on any of them. Okay, and then the person that wrote this has Hayden Wisnowski in the starting rotation. That's not happening. So again, I don't know what the hell they're doing, but interesting offseason. I mean, the Astros had the potential to extend the window. They chose not to by letting Alex Bergman go, so it is what it is.
Joe, I know that we're going to have an American League preview in probably next weekend. Do you have the Astros winning that division?
I do, because I don't believe in what the Mariners have done. I mean, they were one of my losers over the offseason, and I don't believe that the Rangers are in any shape to contend. Again, they've got a great hitting core, but I'm not very high on their pitching. So, and their pitching has always been a problem for them. So, who's going to come out of that division? The Athletics? No. The Angels?
Hey, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
The A's.
Okay. The A's. Okay. The A's decide that they're going to move to Sacramento, and then decide that they're actually going to spend the money.
What a kick in the ball.
The A's. Okay. The A's had a very good end of their season last year. Brent Rooker is an absolute beast. He's a great social media follow as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they made some good moves. I'm not gonna lie, they made some pretty good moves over the offseason. But I don't see them being contenders. But that's why what the Astros did over the offseason was so frustrating, because the window was still open, because the Mariners and the Rangers didn't make moves to really, bolster their staff in any way. I mean, I'm not scared of Jacob deGrom, who's twice removed off of Tommy John surgery, Nathan Eovaldi, who can never stay healthy, John Gray, and Cody Bradford.
No.
I'm not scared of that rotation. That rotation does not bring the fear of God into my eyes. That lineup is, I guess, when you get to 5, 1 through 5 is scary, but not, I mean,
it's the Mets.
Not very much after that. All I'm going to say. Yeah. So the Astros had the opportunity to just win the division and rake up, and they didn't. They probably will, but yeah, it is what it is. I've ranted too long.
Oh, Nathan, do you have?
Joe is watching every game on Stream East this year. By the way,
Nathan, do you have any final thoughts about our discussion tonight?
I think you guys covered most of it. Yankees, they pivoted quickly off Soto. They got Fried. They got Devin Williams, and then
Bellinger.
the Cubs moved Bellinger after they pick up Kyle Tucker. The rest of those moves, they're okay. I don't want to put too much more merit into them. The other team, this one is fairly questionable, but I think the White Sox had an interesting offseason. I think moving Crochet moved the needle for them a little bit in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there yet, but it definitely helped with rebuilding their camp that they got there.
I agree.
Christian Moore is, not Christian Moore, Braden Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Moore is still with the Red Sox, I believe. Yeah, or the Angels. I think he's with the Angels. Braden Montgomery, I think, in 2 years is going to be a real notable name for them. So I think they should really be looking towards the future again. Unfortunately.
And that's what sucks too. It's because they've had all of these like big name prospects, and none of them developed. Not a single one really turned out great. Or they were.
They had 1 year.
That's my whole thing.
Yeah, and Robert and Eloy were their two big ones. And Eloy, 2021 was their God, their golden hour. I mean, they had
Mhm.
the Field of Dreams game, Tim Anderson with the walk-off homer. God, that was
That was
their
peak right
golden
there.
hour.
Jose
It was
Ramirez,
it was that,
absolutely.
man.
I mean, he just destroyed their whole
Yeah.
franchise with that swing on him.
Yeah,
He cursed him for the
it
next
ended
10
it.
years.
And Robert he's been on his Rendon stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It's desolate over there, and their management, their ownership, it's in every sport. It's the same with the Bulls. They have no real future going on, no direction. Like, and that pains me as a Bulls fan. But that's a different topic. They just the moves they made were good, I think, but they still need to get their heads out of their asses.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's all I have left for that. Joe, enjoy your streaming this year.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, gentlemen, it's been a great podcast. We've discussed our losers of the offseason. We've discussed our winners of the offseason. Next week, we are going to do an American League preview. And then the week after, we will do a National League preview. And then the following week, we will probably do maybe a division champs preview, a World Series preview, maybe some MVP, AL, NL Cy Young talk. We're gonna have those lined out. So it's gonna be a great 3 weeks coming up for sure. I am really excited for the fact that we just have real baseball content that's not just rumors now. That there are pitchers and catchers that have reported. Most position players report tomorrow. Most of them are already there. But it's just so good to see like real baseball content, like the pop of the mid, the crack of the bat. It just feels so good. Like we've just been sitting in purgatory since, the 1st of November. And here we are. We've made it through the darkest part of the year. We're going to spring forward in about 3 weeks. It just feels good, gentlemen. Baseball is back. And
We play games in 4 days, man.
I'm so freaking excited, guys. I love baseball season. It just makes me happy. And really, once we start games in the next 4 or 5 days, we're going to have baseball every day until November again. And that's just glorious. And baseball is the best sport in the world. That's all there is to it. Hands down, there's nothing that beats it. It's glorious. I'm just so happy. I'm so thankful that we have baseball back. So thank you everyone for listening. We wanted to keep it 30 to 40 minutes, but we did have some things we wanted to add in there. We couldn't leave out.
I apologize. That's my fault.
All good, Joe.
I gotta be better.
You're always good for one good Joe rant every podcast.
Yeah, it happens. I gotta be better about that.
It's all good. It's all good. You'll get to do it again during your American League preview next week. So I can't wait. I'm already trying to sit here letting the wheels spin on what it's going to be about. But anyway, thank you everyone for listening. Remember, if you have not already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Throwing Partners Podcast. And also remember, we are on Apple Podcasts now as well. So if you're wanting to listen to us at the gym or on your way to work or wherever you're going, feel free to give us a listen. Also, too, if you would please leave us a 5-star review, that also really helps the show. I noticed our last video on YouTube has like 140 views now, which is huge for us because usually our views sit like in the 50s to 60s. So thank you everyone for all the support. We really enjoy it, and this is one of the highlights of my week. I love doing this with Joe and with Nathan. So thank you everyone for the support. Keep sharing everything about the show. Keep telling your friends about it. And we will talk to you next Sunday.